Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Eddie and welcome to my channel. For those of you who are coming back, hi, I know it's been a minute, life's been busy and crazy, but here we are. Today's gonna be a little bit different of a video, just disclaimer. It's gonna be more like me talking slash giving information. So why did I choose this topic? This topic was chosen because I'm a psychology major and because I've been taking an English course this semester in college that was geared towards finding a concept or an idea that students found interesting and expanding on it. And me being a psychology major thought, wow, mental health would be something great to write about. There's a whole bunch of information on mental health disorders and a whole bunch of information on how to help people and a whole bunch of information on this topic as a whole. Me being the person I am didn't really think much of it just because I already knew so much about the topic that I didn't really realize that there's not a lot of articles or there's not a lot of information that is generalized. Unless you're looking for like a specific thing online and you go and put that into Google or you go and do a search, however you're gonna do a search, unless you put in specifics, you're pretty much just gonna get like a general idea or like general articles on mental health as a whole. So I think this is so important just because there's a huge stigma that comes with mental health as it is, or having mental health issues. I know that it's uncomfortable to talk about sometimes and that causes like a lack of conversation, unfortunately. But like also there's other aspects that are also attributing to the lack of conversation going on, and one of those is media coverage. Media coverage honestly is something that should be used more. But after Googling mental health, I'll insert the clip here. You can see that the first page, there's just like mental health facilities, there we go, general like websites on mental health and like getting help. But if you go into the articles, unfortunately, only like 2 out of the 10 here are gonna actually be about learning about mental health and learning how to help people with mental health problems. That's really concerning just because if that's the case, how are we supposed to have a conversation? How are we supposed to educate ourselves on this or even know that this is something that we need to educate ourselves on? Now, I'm not blaming the lack of conversation being on the lack of media coverage, because don't get me wrong, yeah, there is media coverage, and if you do other like searches or anything else on there, you can find articles that are going to help you in this case, or find articles there that are knowledgeable on the subject. And there are articles that are out there that can teach people what to look out for when it comes to someone going through a mental health crisis. And because this lack of conversation that's going on, it's not brought up. And because it's not brought up, it's not something that people are paying attention to. Now, I'm not saying that this lack of conversation is coming from the lack of media in today's society. I'm kind of just touching on the fact that media isn't used well or advertised enough in the specific area just because mental health is so broad. Fortunately, mental health is something that is constantly evolving, changing. New diagnoses are formed every day. Throughout this course, at one point I did a survey just to see generally how society or people I knew viewed mental health as a whole and how likely they were to respond in a situation where somebody else was having a mental health crisis. My first question going in was, do you have a general idea of mental health? And all but one said yes, that they had a general idea of mental health. And from there, I asked questions about experience. Do you or someone you know deal with symptoms of anxiety and depression? And I left it at just those two, mainly because they're common and I didn't want to have to explain for a yes and no question the different characteristics of mental health problems or the vast differences in between disorders. And with my results, I was right. 99% of the people did know or deal with anxiety or depression themselves. These were just yes or no questions because I wanted to get a feel for the number of people that knew about these and like knew people that had these specific disorders just because they are so common, just so that I had a general idea of who I was dealing with and what these respondents were gonna put in my surveys. My next questions were more about like, what research have you done, if any? And out of the 99% that said yes, they knew people with anxiety and depression, 1/3 of those people actually hadn't done any research on it or done any research that they could remember. Putting it into perspective is a lot of people. If I take my survey and try to project that amount onto like obviously a general population, that's 1/3 of the population not knowing or having any knowledge on mental health disorders or mental health issues that are common let alone uncommon. And then lastly on my survey was a question on, do you know how to spot the signs or warning signs for someone that's going through mental distress? So I had like 1/3 of the population say no, and then the other half said yes, that they had actually seen like videos or something that could help them tell the warning signs or the differences between behaviors in mental health crises. Well, the people that did say that they had seen any documentation on it, a majority of them said yeah, it was helpful, but in return I also did have 1/3 of the population say that they didn't see it, and if they had seen it, it wasn't helpful to them, and they still didn't really know how to look for warning signs or see if that behavior is just something that they're going through, or they were aware of the warning signs and just didn't know how to react. So to that, and if you're one of those people that doesn't know what to do in that situation, I got you, because here's what you do if someone you know or someone you love is going through it. So first, don't always assume that you're going to be able to fix a situation, because sometimes the situations are bigger than us or bigger than what they seem and may take a professional to help, and that's okay. Don't take the responsibility of like, oh, I need to fix this, or even in that case assume that the situation needs to be fixed. Also, don't be offended if someone doesn't want to talk about their mental health problems, because like it's personal. So my second point here would be to educate yourself. And the reason behind educating yourself is because knowledge is essentially power in these situations. And learning something as simple as warning signs, and I'll put them on the screen so that you guys can see them too, and just that you know, and just so that this information is being circulated somehow. Educating yourself is putting you in a position to understand and empathize what other people are going through. But something as simple as learning the warning signs could be the difference of saving someone's life. And yes, on a grand scale, like something as simple as learning the warning signs may not fix every situation, but if you educate yourself and do end up learning the warning signs and further research on this topic, then I'm pretty sure you can find a whole bunch of resources at your disposal. And sometimes we as people don't know what to do in that situation where we are going through a mental health crisis, or we are going through something and we don't know who to talk to. Just having that person come up to you and be like, hey, like, I noticed that something's wrong. I'm not really sure what it is, but like if you want to talk about it, leaving that door open to them, and that there already opens up a conversation about mental health and about things that people are going through, and kind of creates a dialogue already. And that's just one simple step of asking your friend like, hey, are you okay? And that kind of just opens the conversation more, and maybe it was a conversation that needed to happen, whether it be to help or it's just closure to make sure that everything's okay. My number 3 on this list is ask. And the reason behind ask being number 3 is because I thought it was better to educate yourself beforehand, so that you had like maybe resources that you'd want to share, or like a general idea of what to talk about when you go to ask this person like, hey, are you okay? The reason why ask was number 3 as well was because we can't always just assume that because someone is involved in a different behavior that is outside of their normal routine that they're going through something. Another major factor here is if you do ask someone about their mental health or bring up the fact that they're behaving a little differently, don't be offended if this person doesn't want to share that information with you. This is personal information, and like personal information, some people want to be private about it, and that's okay. Let them be private about it. At least you open the door. But also recognize that there is a time and place. So if you're with a group of friends and you're asking your friend about anxiety or whether or not she's depressed, if you're in front of a group of people, may not be the best time to ask. Their answers can vary, so they might actually be going through something, and just because we didn't ask in the right time or place, we missed out on that. So always recognize that there's a time and place before you ask a question, or before you ask someone, hey, is everything okay? My last and most important thing on this list is to understand when the situation goes from bad to worse. In many cases, when we're helping someone, when we first ask like, hey, how's it going? Like, what's up? We never really know the extent of what they're going through until they tell us. We find out through an unknown source, or we physically see it happening. And if you find yourself in a situation that is more than what you anticipated and more than you bargained for, and that person is in danger of hurting themselves or others, tell someone. Tell a professional, tell a doctor, tell a teacher, tell a parent, a family member, just tell someone, get that conversation going, because maybe that person needs more help than we thought. And that's okay too. I think with that now I'm going to start wrapping up this video because I know I've been talking for a minute and I'm kind of getting to that point where I just ramble on and on and on. But I will be putting resources and stuff that I found personally in the description box below, and there's some right here. I know it's small and maybe backwards, but hopefully it's not backwards to you guys. It's backwards on my phone. But I'll be putting them down in the description box below. I hope to see you guys soon. It was nice talking. Thanks for watching. Bye!